guess I'd pull it right back and make it about character, not workload.
Welcome to Before the Weekend, and we're up to episode 14 on this fabulous Friday. Good morning to my co-host, Pete. How are we today?
Yeah, living the dream. I was off on annual leave this week, so I'm feeling rather refreshed and ready to get back into it.
Amazing.
You know that hangover that you get after you've been on holidays where you get back and there's like a million emails?
Yes.
That's where I am right now.
Right. You're in that, hey?
Yeah, pretty much.
I spent the week in Sydney, actually, kind of out seeing customers at events. A great week for me. But I think definitely what we're hearing or probably reading in the media around kind of that slowness in market, I definitely feel in certain locations of Sydney, many of the agents are following that sentiment. They're feeling it. They're kind of now looking at how do we get back to basics. I think Tim Lawless mentioned it in one of our first ever episodes around this type of market. You've got to know how to negotiate and you've got to know how to be that true real estate agent. So, yes, they're all very much thinking that. So it was kind of great though, like to hear and see some of their own feedback while on the ground.
Yeah. So market feedback from agents is that it's pretty flat out there.
Yes, absolutely. Definitely flat. But a lot to unpack this week. I guess we'll get straight into probably story one. A bit of a kind of different marketing plot in terms of a billboard that we've seen in the eastern suburbs of Brisbane here.
Yeah. Have you seen this? Did you see it on the news? It was covered pretty prolifically from the domestic news. I think largely because of the nature of it. But for those of the listeners or viewers, if you're watching us on YouTube, who haven't seen it, there's a billboard, an agent, I think he's out of Wynnum, the Wynnum area in Brisbane, and he's been using unusual tactics. I mean, look, using social media tactics or some kind of unusual tactics is not unusual for real estate agents. Every single one of them is trying to, get the next thing that creates a bit of interest. But I think one of the reasons why this has gone forward is it's a founding principle has been using self-deprecating humor, which is very, very great. I actually, it's my go-to is self-deprecating humor. If you don't know what that is, that's not taking the piss out of somebody else, although I do that on regular occasions, and I'm sure you know about that, Casey. Yeah. But self-deprecating is the ability to laugh at yourself, to go like, I'm an idiot because of this. And then, but, the example of this one is that this particular principal from Wynnum put up a billboard that says, "We chose David because we hated him the least." which is pretty funny in a market where real estate agents are on the nose. And to compound this in my local social Facebook group, one of the real estate agents used a fairly prominent large franchise tactic of writing on a handwritten piece of paper to the homeowner, "Please give me a call, James," and a phone number. And, it was just handwritten on a piece of paper into a letterbox. I've seen this done many, many times over the years before. It went wild on social media, people shouting it out as being a grubby tactic, deceptive, not telling them why you're calling. They might think that their cat got run over or anyway, that went nuts. But the general consensus out of that, the point I'm trying to make is that people just friggin' hate real estate agents right now. Like, it was such vitriol for such a small, misdemeanor. And, he was on there. He actually went to apologize before the post was taken down by the admins. But people hate real estate agents. This guy has just thought he'd put it out there and go, "We were hated the least. We were the best of the idiots."
And the bunch, whatever it presented themselves.
Yeah. So I get it. I found obviously the review he put up there is not real. He actually is upfront about that. I think this guy, I haven't met him, but he's a bloke from Britain. He's come over. He used to be a former police officer, from what I understand, and now he's running a fairly successful real estate agent, from what I understand. So, well, what are your thoughts?
Look, I think in life's can be always too serious, right? Like you and I, you more than I have a little banter at each other. I think you definitely have cracks at me more often than none. But
I'm
in
not sure
saying
that.
I don't know. In saying that though, I think, look, a little bit of humor and laughing at yourself is actually okay. But I think it's not, to this particular point, he hasn't done it. This is not the first time that he's actually done this. He's done another billboard. I think it read, "Call the agent who's next to the bins in the car park by the train line." So I don't know where that kind of one was going. But, I certainly found a little humor in the one that was just presented. But I think
he's implying he's a drug dealer in that one, but
maybe, potentially, maybe. Yeah, maybe. But I think, we all, or everyone in real estate tries to find what is that new kind of marketing plot? What's a new way, a new avenue? How can I get people's attention? And I think we saw another one of those this week, right? The fake theft that came out.
Yep.
Yeah, that was from Melbourne, I believe.
Yep.
Yep.
Southeast Melbourne, yep. Did you see it? Tell me about it.
Yeah, so I saw the post and obviously, came up through, Instagram, that it was this, photo of this beautiful blonde woman and it says, "Urgent, help needed. Jessica Thompson, you stole from our home." So this photo of the female kind of, right, saying that she stole from the home, right?
Yeah, but just pause on that. We see that type of post all the time in social media groups. Does anyone recognize these cretins who stole from our yard, right? So
yes,
we see that and she's preyed on that. So go on.
Yes, so then they've utilised that imagery that we always see and everyone then pays attention to that, right? And they've done that and through the imagery and the videos that they've used, what it's actually meant is that their marketing plot has worked because it got eyeballs on it. You and I are now talking about it. And so are many others who sent me also the image saying, "Oh my God, look at this." And it was actually just a marketing of that property. And the agent has come out publicly to say that it was all done on purpose. Nobody stole from the home. It was just absolutely that marketing angle of, how am I going to get eyeballs on this? I need to sell this home and I need people to be able to see the imagery and look through the imagery.
Well, I'm going to give you another point of view, and I think this is on both of them. So, largely on the first one, I found that funny, and I like the fact that my response was humor. So I'm like, okay, lighthearted joke. He's taking the piss out of himself.
100%.
Fantastic. All play to you. This second one, that was not the case. I did look at it. I looked at it before it was sent to me by anyone. I looked at it and I switched off after I realized in the second slide that I'd been catfished and this person hadn't stolen from the open home. Firstly, I was looking at it from a before the weekend angle. If someone stole from an open home, where you posted is not on social media. So I was looking at that going, is this a stupid agent or, is this a story on a stupid agent or is this someone who's actually stolen from the open home? And that would have been sensational. And then when they went on to describe the first view as being spanning living interiors and they put the real estate speak in there, I switched off. I was like, okay, she's used that as a stunt. So like this, the thing with all of these, and I'm not just highlighting the second one in particular, I take umbrance to it because I think people walk away thinking, yeah, I've eyeballed it, but I'm not going to call now. Like you made me feel dumb. You've made me feel stupid. You've catfished me on something.
Yeah.
So we're starting from a deficit of trust. And this agent exacerbates that to get hits, to get clicks. The end result is you got to sell a house, right? So if most of the people are walking away with a negative experience from there, do you think that they're calling that agent to buy that house? And the reality is, I think most people look at it going, well, that's a cool pony trick. But does it actually translate to views for the house? And like I've seen this before hundreds of times, like so many times where it's clickbait, but is that clickbait actually turning to return on investment? And, the strange thing about all of this is like getting all of those views is great, but I never see on the tail end of that, I never see somebody going, you know what? I got, I think she said 500,000 views.
Mm-hmm.
And as a result of that, I think we got 15 extra offers and therefore the house is sold at a higher price. I don't hear that secondary bit. So any kind of marketing is not good marketing. The person who said all press is good press is incorrect. It depends on what that person walks away with. And I think in it, you know, the first one, the guy was preying on the deficit of trust, or the fact that we have a low reputation as agents. He was laughing about that in a self-deprecating way. I think most people looked at that and thought it was funny. I reckon he's going to get calls because of that. People are going to go, hey, agent who I hate the least, come and appraise my house. You know, like,
exactly,
I can
right?
absolutely see that happening. I can see the majority of people turning off on this one going, oh, I've been catfished. Another real estate agent deceiving me about, I don't know.
Well, they were the types of messages that I was getting, flooding my messenger of like, look at this, like what a bit of a turkey to kind of think that this is a great kind of marketing idea to do, especially when there's so much now out there about the misconduct and the lack of trust that the consumer has in us as agents. So you're 100% right. Like no one said anything positive about the second one, but everyone did that I have spoken to, including actually someone locally in that area who's a real estate agent, actually thought it was really funny. Drove past and said, I'd actually call off that billboard. So it was, you know, there definitely was humour in the first one.
So different.
There was a borderline, I think, of the second one.
So different. And it's the response. It's the response that the humor invokes. You know how when you hear a really dark joke that you shouldn't be laughing at, but it's pretty funny. And we shouldn't be laughing at it because we're politically correct and whatever else. But what's the intention of the humor at the back end? And like hers was to get clicks. His was taking the piss out of himself and getting calls from it. And I think, it's a great example for if you're an emerging real estate agent. I think if you were going to follow one, there's been edgy. I actually think I've always been on the line of edgy as far as marketing's been concerned. A lot of my marketing ideas, you know, that not all of them land, and I'll give that to people, to the person, especially in the second one. She might have tried a marketing plan and maybe it's landed, maybe it hasn't. Maybe all the unwanted attention. Like, can you even imagine responding to the comments on that? You'd have to hire a person to do that. So I don't know how that's covered. But we should move on. Let's go to story 3.
Yeah.
And this is one from yesterday. I don't know. I'm a bit fatigued by the Office of Fair Trading Consumer Affairs Victoria, Office of Fair Trading Queensland, all of them coming out. But the New South Wales government published results of a statewide intelligence-led, I love the one they're putting this one. Intelligence-led operation targeting agencies at higher risk of failing trust account obligations. Now, trust account obligations in every state that I have seen are regarded as the most heinous of crimes. They are the ones that are, you know, they're penalised. This is where jail sentences are handed out. Yeah. So what they came out with was more than $200,000 in fines, 34 businesses on notice, facing potential license suspension. I doubt it. I think a lot of those notices will be, you know, there's been a trust accounting, a minor transaction that is explainable, or this is, you know, something that we can figure out. 41 overdue audits. Well, that might be because of the mountain of paperwork.
Yeah, that's required during an audit.
Yeah, that's right. 32 warnings, 3 industry bans. Well, the industry bans is a good one. So they've obviously found something there. That's big. And I would say those 3 industry bans line up with the $200,000 in fines. They normally go hand in hand. 6 mandatory training orders. That's somebody that we discussed this not long ago. There was a New South Wales guy who didn't realise that he had to operate a general account and a trust account. Do you remember this?
Yes, absolutely.
I actually think this is part of
that. They've rolled, I think, a lot of those.
They've rolled it all in together to say we're doing something. Yeah. But it's interesting because who this has come from. So the Minister for Better Regulation and Fair Trading, Anulak Shanthifong, I think is his name, Shanthifong. This is the same guy that Tim McKibben came out and said he needs to resign and he needs to resign because we have no dialogue. The industry has no dialogue with this guy. He has released 488 pieces of new regulation this year, and Tim was arguing that he has, in effect, created an unsafe workplace for property managers in particular who cannot keep up with 488 new pieces of regulation. And every time he does it, he doesn't consult the industry to go, this is what's happening. So very, very interesting that guy didn't respond to the calls for him to resign, but has stepped out going, you know what, we've pulled out a big smacking stick and this is what we've done to the industry. What kind of message is that sending to you, Casey?
Yeah, I don't know, like this government just seems to be heavy-handed, right? Like it doesn't matter what it is. It's, again, I kind of look at this as, okay, yes, as the real estate agent, we have to do these things. We have to do the audits. It could be that we have legitimately made a mistake, as you mentioned. So yes, okay, we might need to undergo some additional training, and some things might have changed that has meant for that mistake to happen. But I think without, he's coming out heavy-handed and doing this and making this incredible strong enforcement action and throwing his weight around, but won't actually sit down and look at all of those 486 changes that have been made to legislation, more importantly, consulted with the people in the industry, working in the industry, who can then understand how to roll them out, how to best implement them, whether or not they're even the right things to be adding within the legislation. So I feel like we've just got a government sitting back making rules, however they feel it is, or people, right? Like these are people. And just trying to throw their weight around with no kind of understanding, but no intent to even understand, I think, is the key here. And it's been proven because he just won't even sit down with Tim and talk through any of this to kind of say, how do we actually make this work?
Sometimes I wonder when I see these things whether it would be better if we had a union. I'm not a fan of unions,
No.
largely because of the amount of corruption that has emanated from that area. But, when you speak to people like the teachers union, for example, or in the universities, they swear by the unions. They say they protect their jobs and do a bunch of other things. And I'm not saying that the Office of Fair Trading is not, they do it. The office. I'm not saying the Real Estate Institute of New South Wales do not do a good job. They certainly do. They advocate on behalf of. But, I'm wondering whether we rebranded that to a union and started throwing some political money at lobbying against these guys, whether all of a sudden we'd get a bit more interest. It's just curious in any other industry. If this was to happen in education, if I was a teacher and somebody did this to the teaching industry, the unions would be out in arms, would be seeing strikes. I've never seen a real estate agent strike yet because that means that they're not getting paid. But just the inequity between the ability for old mate to come out and do this while not having a dialogue, while not consulting the industry is, it's quite incredible. It's a bit of quite dazzling, to be honest.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's look, I don't really know what my take is on it. I think our REIs are there and they're doing absolutely an amazing job. They're really trying to advocate and be the voice, for us within the industry. But, I also appreciate that it's difficult for them because they've got a government who clearly is not listening, but more importantly, doesn't want to listen, I think, is the key here. So, I think, anyway, let's move on to our next story, I think. What do we got next on the list?
Well, so last week we raised the concept of deposit flicking, and if you didn't hear episode 13, deposit flicking is when in most standard transactions you've got a seller and you've got a buyer, and they will agree to put any kind of deposit that's related to the transaction, normally from the buyer to the seller, into a trust account, and that trust account can be at the real estate agents, it can be at the solicitors, which is rarely the case. Normally, it's held by the real estate agent, and the common industry theme is that we want to hold it to protect our commission in the case that it goes through. If it's with the solicitors, we then have to go back and fight for that. But the concept of money held in trust is that it's held until any kind of dispute is resolved before it's taken and used, and then you have to fight to get it back, right? That's the concept. And that's why in that previous thing, money's been held in trust is viewed as such a sanctimonious area, because that's normally where real estate agents go wrong. They do the wrong thing by misappropriating trust funds. Well, deposit flicking is the practice of storing it somewhere else. And one of the largest reasons that it would be stored somewhere else is because of the interest accrued in it. So if you think about not just standard houses, which might be 60 to 90 days or 30 to 90 days in settlement, and that money sits there for 3 months and accrues interest. When you look at developments, which can go on for 3 to 4 years, money sitting in there, like let's say that's a 10% deposit that's sitting in there, or a 20% deposit sometimes, that is a lot of money that goes in there. And typically, who claims that interest is the question. A lot of the development contracts have allowance for that, but it's still not the full value of the money that goes there. And so it's been interesting. A business model was put to me not long ago about deposit flicking. Like, why don't we start a company where we agree to hold these deposits? And believe me, it's not just as easy as that. There's a lot behind that concept. Firstly, all of the financial obligations, you basically need to be one step short of a bank in order to do that. But let's set up an account where we can hold it. We're going to take that interest ourselves, and we just get the parties to agree that it's held there. Now, what happened is Jared Zach of Dot and Crossett, which is a legal firm, had come out and said they don't like the practice and they believe it's unlawful. And the person that was doing this agency settlements is called a law firm owned by Riverstone Partners. They tried to, I guess, I don't know whether it was an injunction, but they took action against Jared Zach of Dot and Crossett, saying that you're not allowed to say that. You basically, I think they said that you're not defaming me, but they put an injunction because they said, look, you can't say it's unlawful. And the judgment came out this week and said that there are many voices in the debate, and very little is to be gained by silencing just one of these voices. So the judge actually said, look, there is a debate going on about this, and it would be stupid to say one side cannot say this about the other because there hasn't been a response. It did actually say in the settlement that agency settlements has demonstrated a good arguable case that Mr. Zach has contravened the Australian consumer law, but the judge said that he did not consider that to be the balance of convenience favours the grant of interim relief. So he's not off the hook yet. He's just saying that there is a debate going on about this. It hasn't been tested legally. We don't have regulation for it. So I think this is still out there. And interestingly, Tim McKibben of the REI NSW came out this week. He said, right now we're in the dark and we don't know whether something's compliant or not. And his position is to be cautious. And that's where I think it would be. But here is where I think it all boils down to. So I might have lost you with all of the terminology, but if you're a buyer, Casey, and I'm a seller, by law, and I think this is where actually Jared Zach's media team reached out to us and asked if we were interested in having him on the show. And when I responded yesterday, we haven't been able to get him on the show. So that would have been an interesting one to throw it to him. We just haven't been able to tee it up in time. But I think my understanding of it, and I am not a lawyer, this is just my layman's understanding of it, is that if you are the buyer and I'm the seller and we agree to put our money in X, whatever X is, we're allowed to do that. We've both agreed, if both parties have agreed, we're allowed to put it in X. And I think that is the argument at the moment. Now, that doesn't mean that everyone should run out there and go, right, we're going to put our money in a bank. There's a reason that trust accounts have existed for so long and have been, the Office of Fair Trading view them as being so serious when people breach that, because that money should be held in trust. So wherever X is and wherever you're putting it needs to be pretty ironclad that if there's a dispute amongst the parties, and we all know that disputes arise out of anything, like found termites at the property after settlement or whatever, then you need that trust account to back up your claim or your argument, etc. So, where I sit is I personally think that regulation will come in and outride this practice and say, no, it must be held in trust, a prescribed trust account, and this is what that looks like. Because I think, and again, I don't know for sure, but I think the interest from the money held in those trust accounts actually goes to mediating a lot of the disputes that go on in the real estate industry. But we'll follow that one down. It's an interesting one. It feels to me as though a tech company, as a conveyancing company, has found a loophole where they can claim the interest rather than it go to federal sources. And I think you will see that loophole close pretty quickly. But then there's been a stoush between the conveyancers, one saying, I don't think it's lawful. And I've just got the money through at the moment. So Property Services Statutory Interest Account has 80.5 million received in the financial year 23 to 24, with an account balance of 315 million. So this is not small bickies.
No.
The account nationally backstops the Property Services Compensation Fund, which pays out when an agency steals trust account money. So that's where that interest goes to. It actually backstops our industry. It's as to whether people can put it where they want with an agreement. I still think that that might be the case, but I don't think it's going to be there. And I will throw, just as a closer on this, I'll throw you back to Tim's point, which I think we're in the dark and we don't know whether something's compliant, and his position is to be cautious. I think they're very sage, wise words. Do you think?
Yes, absolutely. I think, look, the consumer's got really no idea what's going on, but at the end of the day, they pay to assume that that's going to be somewhere safe, and that, and they can agree that it can go to wherever that safe place is. But I just think that we're actually having a very, a technical argument or a debate over something that's just a really simple promise to what we make. We're going to receive it and we're going to hold it in trust. And now we're kind of debating about whether or not that actually happens. So, yeah.
And whether you would like to earn interest off the money that's in an account or not. The one thing that you want to do is get your deposit back if things go bad. So,
100%. Yeah.
One should well and truly outweigh the other. But,
definitely.
What do I know?
I don't know. You might know about this one, the termite bill.
I do.
You do know about the termite bill.
Well, I come from Central Queensland. I know a thing or two about termites. It was almost at the stage where we had to start training agents to identify early warning signs or things that were evidence of termites. And I mean, train as in above what you'll hear a lot of older real estate agents go, I can spot termites a mile away. The reality is you can't. They can eat out at a whole house and you wouldn't know what's there. But, we actually did training on this. Our principal at the time said it was so serious in one particular area of the farming area that we operated in that they actually took us to a house and showed us how concealed it could be, and to look for some things. Like in one of these houses, the wall, the dry wall, the gyprock would actually move when you pushed it. And that was because all of the termites had eaten out the inside of that. So we actually went to an affected property and we had a look at walls that weren't affected and those that were, and look for warning signs entering, leaving the property, all of those kind of things. But with this story, you want to set it up? What are we talking about?
Yeah. So Building and Pest, actually the inspection company, posted about a Victorian client who bought their property relying on what is called Section 32 in terms of a building and pest inspection. So the vendor signed the Section 32 saying that she knew that there was no termites and answered no to the material facts, right, of that statement. After settlement, the neighbour of of that now new buyer, added them to the local Facebook group. And I guess this is a whole thing about what you put on social media also matters. And she scrolled back and saw that there was a post written by that seller in regards to asking about what to do if there's termites in their property. So what's I think come out of this is that then a statement has been made within that post saying that because I guess that statement, that section 32, that materials facts form was only between the vendor and the agent. Therefore, then the vendor in selling it was right in her assumption. It was right by her ticking no in that forms. But in fact, you and I both know that that is incorrect. So do you want to talk us through the section of the Act, Pete?
Yeah, well, I mean, I wouldn't, again, this is another area I wouldn't claim to be an expert, but they're saying that the buyer has settled, so Section 32K rescission is gone. That right only runs until the purchaser accepts title and possession, which is an interesting one. I know in the US when this happens, so these are called, this is called a disclosure, effectively. Yes. The 32K, for those who are listening and they're in other states, we've got a Form 2 here in Queensland. That's effectively a seller's disclosure saying somebody was murdered on the property last week and the body was over there and we know about that and we're disclosing that to you because if you buy the property, you know, the intention is that you can pull out of that contract. The contract's one thing. In the US, if this had happened, there would be a civil case against the person for making a false statement, which led the person to make a decision. So whilst I do agree with the inspector that came through afterwards and found it was riddled with termites, and honestly, for the videos that I've seen, $32,000 worth of damage, she got out lightly. This was a fairly small, it had like a wooden floating floor. I don't know what the sub flooring was. I don't know whether it was on stilts or whether it was brick or whatever, but I could see that it had a floating wooden floor and then a bit of a gap until what was underneath it. And it was riddled with termites. So she basically lost her living room floor area. They had to gut that and go and replace it. And the building inspector said, well, he falsely said that the 32K is just between her and the selling agent. That's not correct. It's a disclosure for the period of the contract. And if something's found during that contract, the person can pull out if the disclosure is found to be false. But what happens if they've lied about that and you know, it's somewhere else? Again, I am not a legal professional, but my understanding is they can go and sue the person. And, you know, they'd have to be making a decision as to whether that 32K was worth suing for. But it sounds like she's got some pretty strong material facts there that suggest that the seller did know about it and has intentionally deceived her into a contract. To me, that always sits in a civil court. And I'm wondering whether from last memory, small claims was up to 25,000, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so. But I think as well, just even from a Victoria standpoint, she'd be probably waiting for a long time for this to even be heard.
Yeah, well, maybe if she went to VCAT, but she might just go straight through the courts. Like, honestly, I think I'd be serving legal notice if it was me. Again, not a lawyer, but I'd be serving notice saying I'm very interested in hearing your side of the argument and why this bill shouldn't be on you. Feel like you've deceived me in a contract. I mean, you shouldn't be able to do that. And that's exactly what the Section 32 was there. So, you know, like, I actually don't think this one's on agents, but the one thing that does come out of it is if you're a purchaser and you're looking at a property, you need to absolutely do your own independent building pest and, or here's the other thing is the vendor refused an independent building and pest inspection. Now, as a purchaser, that's a big red flag to me. If a purchaser says, I'm not going to allow you to send through an independent building and pest inspector, that's a big red flag. But this person has purchased it. They've got it. Yeah, they've found the problem. to me, it looks like a civil case now that sits outside of the 32K. But I wasn't aware that the 32K only existed for the contract. But I suppose once title's issued, then it becomes the issue of another court, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess, you make a good point. I think in one of our earlier episodes, we had, something similar where there was a sale that went through
I remember that.
There was those, the buyers, it was on, national TV as well in terms of that, these things weren't disclosed and now they're having to foot, the bill. I think theirs was onwards of over 100,000. But, what came out of that, of course, is that you need to go and get your building and pest report. Now, I appreciate that this vendor said, no, I don't want that to happen. But that is absolutely a red flag for buyers out there.
Yeah.
And I think I saw something as well, just to quickly add on to the end of this, is something popped up in my social feed and we were chatting about it in a couple of episodes only just recently around the body corporates and when you're buying through the strata titles.
Oh, yeah.
About reading things, and there's a gentleman that has just come out actually who's bought, and he's made a video on social to this same extent of saying, that when you are buying in strata, don't just say, can I have the I guess a copy of what maybe I'm going to have to pay and what's included in that. He went to the get your meeting notes, answer them for the last 12 months, read them, actually understand them. You have got a right to ask for them. So I think there's kind of those two stories we've, previously covered that kind of brings back to where does the responsibility lie? And unfortunately as a buyer, but in this case, I don't believe there was an agent involved. I do believe this happened between vendor and purchaser independently.
No, there was an agent for her to be filling it.
Okay.
Yeah, there was an agent, but interestingly, in this instance, they haven't pointed the finger at the agent because the agent's pointed to the form and gone, this is a great example of actually where that 32K has got them out of trouble because the agent's gone, look, honestly, I knew nothing about it. Mm-hmm. And as evidence of that, here is the 32K that you saw, which suggests that they have signed something saying that they didn't know about it. So, a great example of what that disclosure is actually there for. That in that instance, it's protected the purchaser. In the last one, I'm pretty sure the ladies that owned that termite house thought that the real estate agent had been unconscionable, and he was saying we didn't know anything about it. So, very, very good differentiation. And I did see that strata title one. If you're doing a search in body corporate and you don't any kind of strata title and you don't do a body corporate search that dates back 12 months, because the things that you find in there is the swimming pool has a hole, there's structural defects in the building, which I think is in his instance, he's not saying, but basically his $4 million purchase, he was going to spend more than $3 million in order to retain that. And so he was almost giving it away. But that is a trap for young players. Any kind of strata title, you need to have a look at it. Let's move on.
Yes. I guess the news of the week. The news of the week, right?
Is it really? Like, I don't know if I'm becoming a bit desensitized to this, but the RBA held at 4.35%. I didn't expect them to raise this one, but I think we are going to see a rise before the end of the year. Well, maybe two of them. But the forecasts, the property forecasts for the thing to come out of here. So we've got ANZ Bank saying Sydney will be down 9.9% over 2026. And they are predicting 14.5% into 2027. And now that's not funny. That's catastrophic for anyone that's bought under the 5% first home owners grant. They will be in negative equity. If that happens, they'll be in negative equity by 10%, maybe, some of them. That's a lot to come back from. So, you got a $2 million house, you're down potentially, if it's 15%, you're going to be down almost $300,000 on that $2 million purchase. If it's 10, you'll be down $200,000, which will sit under your loan. So you're in a negative equity scenario. But look, it doesn't translate to cheaper houses, is what I'm hearing out of this, right?
No, and that's, I think, been the sentiment that's come out, that it's not, this policy is not working. It's actually
not working at all.
It's not working at all, but it's actually going against each other, is what many of them are saying. I guess all of the banks are predicting slightly different things in terms of, where we're going to be positioned. But, I think Nerida Consaby came out to say that falling house prices doesn't mean the cheaper housing, as we've discussed. And the CPI, the headline is that the CPI is at 3.8% and the housing inflation at 6.8%. And so the largest single contributor is electricity at 22.4%. So and that's like obviously with rebates ended. And to be fair, in that first month of that rebate ending, we certainly noticed, that peak, right, in our bill immediately, that you sort of go, oh, wow, where am I going to kind of find that extra? I wasn't budgeting for that. Construction costs are up, rents are up, vacancies low. So they're definitely working against each other. This is not creating the supply to get the people into housing at all.
No, and I'd like, in every single time you've seen a market fall, generally rents will fall with housing prices. They fall in concert, that or one closely after the other or before the other. But this is not the case. That hasn't happened. And the other thing, I think, the unheralded outcome of this, that most of the governments, I think at the moment, most of the state governments are Labor. And one of the things that I think those governments will be having very, very concerned discussions with their national Labor counterparts behind closed doors is that a large portion of the operating budget for the states comes from the stamp duty on houses every time they're transacted. And they've effectively ground that to a halt. So they've killed the golden goose that was feeding them. So I think there are going to be a lot of state governments that start to feel a pain before long. And Melbourne is completely in the toilet. Like if they weren't before, with all of the debt that they've racked up over the Commonwealth Games, the train saga, the CFMEU corruption that appears to be, that's been alleged, all of that missing money that's gone through there, all the way back to Dan Andrews and the COVID scenario under the current Labor government. Now they're not getting income from houses being transacted. And so, I can only imagine the pressure that just keeps heaping up. And that's not even been discussed. Like when we're talking about the supply and demand issue, it's like everything's ground to a halt, and it could actually be the perfect storm.
Yeah, look, I think the key here is cheaper and more affordable, that stopped meaning the same thing. But to be fair, we've made building costs, right? Like, so to build, it's more expensive. And now we've made it less attractive to invest here in Australia, but we've done it all at the same time.
Yeah.
Right. Yep. So I think the policy outcomes have certainly not been an accident here. I don't know what they were thinking really, but it's definitely coming to the forefront that it is absolutely not working.
Yep. And on that same thing, the next story is on the Sydney Plan, which I'm going to call it, which commenced yesterday. It's a 20-year framework from the Minister for Planning and Public Spaces, Paul Scully. But they're saying that the plan is now final and operational. Not every policy inside it was announced yesterday. The 30-year capacity rule was flagged for 29th of July. But the premise is Sydney grows from 5.3 million to 6.6 by 2046, requiring at least 800,000 homes and 950,000 jobs. Councils maintain a rolling 30 years of feasible housing capacity. Do you understand what feasible housing capacity is?
No, probably dive into that, I think.
Yeah, it's the portion of theoretical capacity that is commercially feasible for the private sector to develop.
Yep.
So you have this area and it is feasible or theoretically possible for that to be developed.
Yep.
So the costs of land, finance, labour, materials, taxes and other key inputs is less than what the new home will sell for, and provides the developer with a reasonable return. So there's that distinction. So this is talking about we have a 30-year plan that has feasible housing capacity. We have the ability to deliver these houses, but the distinction between feasible housing capacity is actually delivery. And what we're seeing at the moment is delivery is failing. So the cost of land, finance, labour, materials, taxes is less than what a new home will sell for, and certainly doesn't cover the rent. And so whilst they might have delivered the feasible housing capacity, the theoretical capacity doesn't match that. There's no way that these things can be delivered under the current, scenario, under the current climate. So, what do you think there's even any reason why we should be listening to a feasible housing capacity when the theoretical capacity doesn't deliver?
Yeah, it just doesn't make sense to me. It's just like,
no,
the numbers aren't matching up, and
but they don't match up for anything.
No, that's what I mean. I think for all of this and everything that they've kind of delivered, the numbers are just not stacking up. And what we've done is the opposite to, I think, what they were hoping to achieve here. And so, they're now not getting, the banks are down in terms of the loans that are being written, right?
Yep.
And
big time.
Big time, right? So they're kind of going, well, wow. And of course, they're then looking at their profit.
Money.
Yeah, they're looking at their profit margins. The CEOs are going, oh, God, I'm not going to get my, millions and millions this year. I might drop and buy $1 million in my salary. But I think what they've done, it just has not stacked up in any way. Like nothing is just making sense. So,
I'd point this to no theoretical capacity or feasible capacity is going to deliver if the commercial realism is not correct. So commercially, this is not deliverable. And the other issue I take with this whole argument is that it doesn't cover the amount of houses that we're already in deficit. It just says these are the ones that are coming. So to me, it appears to be a press release for the sake of a press release to say, oh, we're doing something about this. We've got enough corridors that could put a house if we could build a house there, but we can't build a house. It doesn't make sense. So should we move on?
Yeah, look, I want to dive actually into a really positive
story, right?
Yeah, I really want to dive into a positive story because, right, like I think, sometimes we can talk all this gloom, right, about what's going on and all the negativity. But this story this week is about a Canberra agent. He was homeless as a teenager. Have you seen this one on the news as well and through socials, Pete?
Yeah, I have. Yeah.
Yeah, so he obviously, had a drug addiction as a teenager, was living on the streets himself. He got clean and thought, okay, I'm going to get into real estate. That was in 2014, I think. And he's kind of, out with the Vinnies night patrol recently and saw a young lady and her 4-year-old on the streets. They had just, they'd been sleeping out of their car and he thought, well, what can we do here? But I think the key component of this story is that it's coming out of the ACT. So there's 588 vacant public housing properties in the ACT at the moment, 285 need maintenance before they can be tenanted. 3,650 people are approved and waiting to move in.
Yeah.
Right? But there's not even enough homes for that to happen. And so, the priority of you getting one of those homes has extended out to now over 5 years. And so this particular agent is now, looking to do something to support and get out there and fix some of these homes to ensure that some of these people can get off of the street and move into this public housing faster. So I just think this is an agent who was in that position himself and has been able to obviously move forward and get out of it, but is now giving back. So, we always talk about how we're not great people, the guy. Right? Johnny Warren, right? Let's name him. Yeah, absolutely.
Johnny Warren of Johnny Warren Properties is an outstanding article because,
100%.
we're actually seeing somebody who has come from that scenario turn around and go, you know what, I can do something about this, and I'm going to do something about this. And from what I understand, he's taken out, almost cut through all the red tape, and is going to deliver. And it's something that we should follow, actually. I think, we might try and get him on the show and see what he has to say about it. But if what I think what he's the biggest thing is, and the biggest thing I don't understand is how those houses can actually sit there without the maintenance happening to them. Like, we have that pit of money sitting there. So how is it that he could step in? Like, it actually raises a few more questions. If he's actually successful, he steps in and he starts turning these things over by renovating them and getting them ready for people to live in. By the way, he's getting nothing back. This is his own money. He's just throwing at it. So, but if he can actually do this, why are they empty in the first place? That there's money there for that. So I don't know. In this particular instance, I haven't followed as to whether it's the ACT Territorian government's issue or whether it's federal. My guess is it's probably state. But I have no idea as to why this would be a problem at the start when we have that many people sitting there already approved for dwellings, and we have the dwellings there that need renovation. I mean, admittedly, I've seen some really, houses in bad states, and that might take a long time to get up, but some of them might just need carpet and paint. So,
absolutely.
But I'm really happy to see that there's a real estate agent putting his money where his mouth is, like, and doing something in society. Like, imagine, just for a second, you're an operational agent and that story breaks about you and you can actually go to the market. I'm not saying he's done this for commercial enterprise. It sounds like it actually resonated, but I would get that agent over other agents if that was what he was giving back to my community.
Absolutely. It just shows the empathy and the care, right? Like, and it just shows that he has a genuine passion to be helping people to achieve whatever outcome they need to achieve. And in this instance, it's about, how do I help? I was one of those on the streets, and how do I help get others off of the street? Well, there's homes here and clearly we're not doing anything about it, right? And so I get it. There might be some of those that are a little bit more, that need a little bit more work than others, but I'm sure that there are some that just simply need a replacement of carpet, maybe some fittings, maybe there's a few doors off or whatever it has happened, but it might be a week's worth of work or not even, and a few days, get everyone in there, a few, coats of paint, and we can actually start to move some families off of the street and into homes. Yep.
And don't get me wrong, like, I judge a few awards around the nation, and I'm under NDA. I can't mention specific examples of that. That's what you do when you sign a judge. But I do see on a regular basis, I judge a section called, positive change in your community, where real estate agents write in about what they've actually been doing. And there are others just like Johnny Warren who are doing fantastic things in his community. So well done, Johnny. I appreciate what you're doing and keep up the good work, mate. It's the best story that we've had in weeks, right?
Yes, absolutely. Totally agree with that. Yeah. What's next on our list to chat about today, Pete?
Well, here's one. And we've been talking for weeks about the amount of hate generated at real estate agents, and a lot of it undeserved. Like, there was a song on the ABC that they went live with, which was completely unjustified. It was almost all of the lies that have been spread by successive state governments to try and say to the tenant, we're on your side, we're doing the right thing, even though they're not building houses, which has created the problem that they're in at the moment. So I think was it last episode or the episode before, we actually looked at those lyrics. It was a pretty disgusting example of assassination by media. This bloke, I think, is suffering the same thing. He's what's considered to be a mega landlord, and I won't name him, but the guy grew up in Housing Commission in a small regional area, bought his first property at 18. He says he has about 200 properties. Look, every time I've met these mega landlords, there is a fair chance of exaggeration there. But he says he has about 200 properties and he's worth about 150 million, with roughly $60 million worth of debt. Could be the truth. Don't know for sure. But that's the figure that's in the public space. So on the 3rd of August, the Renters and Housing Union. Ever heard of these guys before? Rahu?
No. Rahu?
Me
no.
either.
No.
No. They published a release saying after weeks of fact-finding, door knocking and consulting with tenants, it had discovered excessively high rents, poor conditions and unresponsive agents, and issued to this guy a list of demands. Now, well, that's weird. I've never heard of anyone singling out an investor. Maybe they did a background on his portfolio. I haven't seen that list. It hasn't been published. So there's no properties, tenants, photos or documents have been made public. Like, to me, that sounds like a massive court case. So the gentleman involved posted this week that he'd had hundreds, if not thousands of abusive messages from people who have chosen to believe the misinformation instead of facts. Now, we don't know what is fact and fiction in this. So full disclosure, this is all alleged. He's accused the union of charging fees, selling merchandise with hateful slogans and door knocking his tenants. Well, this is like, I've never heard of this before. He published his property management email in the video, and what does check out, so the things I did look at, is the membership fees are 0 to 30, which is means tested. Merchandise does exist, including a rent is theft poster. Hateful is his characterization. And the door knocking has been confirmed by Rahu itself. So they're actually admitting they did the door knocking. So like I am like, if this is not a witch hunt, I don't know what a witch hunt is. You know, is this not just the modern day version where somebody has said, you have lots of properties, you have been successful, stuff you. Well, like honestly, if there's truth behind people living in, poor conditions. Well, we have an Australian Act. Do we not have legislation against that now? Has come in across the board where? So
there's minimum housing standards or, healthy homes, but across each of the states, there's minimum housing standards in what is now applicable and very much outlines what you must have working and functional and in a good condition before you can even have a renter move into the home. Yeah.
I would have thought there are other ways around this. So if Rahu actually found that out, I would have been supporting the tenants in helping them issue breach notices or the like to get it fixed. But it appears to me that both of them are running public social media or media campaigns, one against the other. It almost appears that Rahu have gone for a high-profile takedown of somebody who has been successful in property. That's what it seems to me. And looking at this property investor, there's a lot of holes in his response as well, things that he could have provided but hasn't yet. So I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure about either of the case or who is guilty and who is not. It's probably a bit of column A and a bit of column B, to be honest. But I don't know. I don't have the answer to that. It just seems like a public spat, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And Rahu, that's a new one. So interesting to see.
Never heard of them. I have never heard of them. But they're on my radar now.
Unless it's, a change of name. I don't know, unless it's. But anyway, I've never heard of them
and
ever
Housing
before.
Union. Yep. Yeah. It's an Australian. Yep. People in unstable housing, we fight for better housing. Like, they've got a fully fledged website.
Wow.
It's crazy. Like, I've never heard of them, but they're on the radar now, so I'll keep an eye on what they're doing.
Yeah, definitely. And look, this story has, come up a little bit. We've spoken about it, but the self-managed super fund door, I believe, is now closed, right? In terms of being able to buy residential property, utilizing your super funds. And I know, this is something that you were certainly looking to do.
Yep.
But I guess what it's seen, and, from the research, I think money.com.au put out some figures during the week in regards to this, at 27% of SMSF investors buy residential. And now we're seeing a 26% pivot to commercial instead, because that's allowed as a part of this. And there's only 12% that certainly buy it outright, but 82% of Australians without it now see no reason to start one, right? So they're now, I guess the investor side of things is looking at how do we now think of other ways we can invest, but more importantly, maybe we haven't had a self-managed super fund. Should we consider doing that? Because now maybe commercial would be a good option for us. So yeah, what's your kind of take on where we're seeing this kind of pivot to?
Well, look, I'm not telling anyone how to invest their self-managed super funds. I don't even know how to invest mine. But
I know, right?
Yeah, the dilemma is real. Like, it's absolutely real. So we started a self-managed super fund. I'll just tell you what my findings are. We've had our money in super all our lives because it's easy to put in there. And it was a couple of years back, I think it was about 4 years back, we did an assessment on what it was returning, and it was around about 3 to 4%. And a lot of people will say to me, well, you can change this up. You can go to self-managed super funds and whatever else. The status quo don't look at that. They believe, they put their money aside. And I've always had it in the back of my mind that, property investment has been a great tool for wealth creation. So we went and created a self-managed super fund, and we didn't action it. We, for those of you who don't know, that involved creating what's called a bear trust, not a BEAR. It's a BARE trust. There's a bit of money involved in it. I think it's between $3,000 and $5,000 to set one up. And then every year you have to maintain that. So I think roughly that costs between $1,000 and $2,000 a year. Even with those costs, that money sitting there at the moment is returning us 8%. So with those costs, we're earning more money than we earned from being in a self-managed super fund. Now, for the self-managed super funds out there, I'm sure there are better ones in there. Actually, I'm great mates with the REI Super One. I've never had my money in that. Maybe I should be rediverting to that in this time. But from where I sit, after that budget, I have nowhere to go with it. I can't do anything. I can't put it in shares because it's taxed too heavily. I can't put it in property. We were ready. We had our loan docs or our pre-approval for finance, we're ready to purchase. I've looked at multiples now and it just doesn't stack up. It doesn't make it. So, I have direct evidence that there's no, like, I could go to commercial. I think commercial in my area is oversaturated. I could go looking at commercial elsewhere, and maybe I should be doing that. Maybe that is a way out. Look, it's just not what I know. I'm really good with residential. Typically, I've done very well in that area. So I would prefer to stick to that or return to a self-managed super fund. But I get it. I don't see. I understand that people are switching to commercial. Do you remember Jim Chalmers came out last week and said, "Oh, there has been a massive increase in the amount of companies started up, like the ignorance." They are all creating companies so that they can invest in commercial. These are not businesses that have been run, as he was attributed. That there are less businesses than there were after budget. These are people who are going to invest in commercial, and that tells me that very soon that market will be exhausted. I mean, there's opportunity in every market, but everyone's kind of going that direction. So, like I'm with people. I think I'm with the most of Australians that have their money in self-managed super fund. I'm kind of in limbo at the moment, not knowing where to go. So if you're listening to this and you have the good oil or the advice, I'd love to hear from you. You hit me up. You can find me on any of the social medias except for the dating sites. I'm not on those.
But I mean, look, it'd be nice to see, if that statement is true in terms of those numbers. Are people? I'm sure they are kind of looking at commercial. I definitely know.
They definitely are.
Yeah, I definitely know that many are looking at, well, now let's utilize that in terms of real estates. Let's buy, that commercial space for my office, as an example, instead of, kind of leasing those office spaces. I know that's definitely been a lot of conversations that I've been having around doing that. As to where they kind of take their business in the future of that. So, yeah, interesting times, I think, in that space. But more importantly, we need to understand as investors what we are able to use those funds for. So maybe if we do have any one listening today who's in that
We've
space,
been asking.
Please come on, reach out to us, dive in with us, talk to us about what it is maybe is coming, or you might, or maybe there's other ideas you've got, so we can have our listeners learn what they can use their self-managed super fund money for instead of it. Well, it's nice if you're sitting it in a bank and it's making some money, but you certainly want to do something with it to certainly make some more money, right?
Yeah,
That's the whole purpose of it.
That's only yearly gains, whereas if I'd invested in something like a property and that property was rising in price, then I have unrealized capital gains in the future.
Yep.
So, or in stocks or the share market, whatever it may be. Hey, we need to move on. We've got one more story before we finish. This is very different, and I've been saying for weeks that I have been calling out the REA Group as not having released anything to do with the changes in search findings. So it is very much of my belief that the Australian consumer have changed the way that they go about searching for property. I believe that AI is a huge part of that search now. We don't have any stats on it, and that might be something. That might be something for another one of my initiatives, which is the PropTech Collab. We might have to have a look at that and run a survey through there. But interestingly, there are two sets of numbers out last week or just the week before. The first one was the REA's financial statement in line with our reporting. That came out. We spoke about that last week. This week, we see they released a REA's AI property report. So number one, I can't find, and this is anecdotal, I can't find anyone that's using the REA's artificial intelligence to search for a property. I don't know anyone that's doing it. They have an engine that's there. They've coupled with ChatGPT to use it. I've used it twice. I found it to be incredibly poor, like very, very poor. Not just, it would be better if you just went to ChatGPT and searched for property straight up, or Claude, or whatever your chosen one is. That's my take on it. But on the 11th of August, which is now 3 days ago, they launched Next Gen Now, AI Assistant, Campaign Assistant, etc. Walkthrough reels, plus an AI search trends report. So I can't find anyone using their AI search trends, but they've released this report, and it says a few things. 59% start wide is what they're saying. So lifestyle or community narrowing. 41% start with a suburb. 59% start with lifestyle or commute before deciding on a suburb. Now, to me, that sounds like a cost of living pressure. Every single time, if I was to travel to your place right now, Casey, I wouldn't get there till 11 o'clock because we now have peak hour traffic that kicks off here in southeast Queensland. This is Gold Coast, Sunshine Coast, Brisbane at 4 a.m. in the morning. 4:30 is when it kicks in, and it sometimes doesn't relieve all day, but on a normal day, it will end at 11 a.m. And so me living semi-regional, that would take me about a 3-hour commute to get to your house in Brisbane on what should be a clean every day of the week too. It's probably more like 3.5 if I go in peak. But put that to the side. That's why I think people are starting with lifestyle or commute before they narrow, because they don't want to spend surplus of an hour to 2 hours in the car every day. Family and schooling is the biggest lifestyle driver in 14% of all sessions. Well, I don't think anything much has changed there. That's why we put on every listing, here are the schools and the catchment zones that are nearby. 30% include a commute or a travel radius, late stage buyers. 40% ask about architectural style, conditional potential, renovation potential, renovation potential. Have you ever asked about architectural style when it comes to purchasing a property?
No.
Me either.
And I think renovation potential, I think every property has renovation potential. Like it's about, right?
Yeah,
like
that's it.
Yeah, I don't know. That's very interesting that they've kind of positioned it like that.
They've grouped in condition. So what condition is the property in? Maybe they're looking at that. 72% refine at least once. Location is a common change at 45%. Now, all of this is out. You can go and have a read of it up on the REA website. I'm going to get to the point straight away. And it's what is not included in this report. This is not an AI report. This is a housing search report with one semi-AI stat in it. Again, this is our nation's biggest portal, the most profitable portal in the world, is realestate.com.au. They've released an AI report with very, very little pertaining to AI in it. So every number is a percentage of sessions. The report doesn't say how many people use an AI search. I think that would be very embarrassing because we have those numbers. There's numbers in the US. The NAR released 60% start with AI first. There was one out of the UK. I forget where this came from, but it was about 45%. And that was last year. So I suspect that's up around 50% for the UK now. We don't have one, but can you imagine if we were anything like the UK and the US, which we kind of are, where between 40 and 60% of our people started with AI first, the damage that would do to the REA Group as a national portal who don't have a meaningful AI search that's attached. Now, they're going to dispute that. They're going to say, yes, we do. But let me. I haven't finished yet because I thought this report by omission was actually quite a damning report. So it opens with millions of Australians are visiting the site, and then says only for some AI is becoming part of that journey. So you can't tell if that's 0.05% or 30%. No number on that. There's no time period, no trend line. It's called a trends report, single snapshot, no baseline. There's no comparison, and this is a group that have prop track. So they know how to research, one would assume, but there's no comment on that the whole way through. The most commercially important claim has no number. So property seekers who are using AI are most likely to save, inquire, share, or inspect. More likely than whom? By how much? And people who reach for an advanced research tool are probably already more motivated. That's a selection effect presented as a reason to change your copy. So, nothing on how the AI decides what surfaces. Filter search was deterministic. A listing matched or it didn't. And you could check AI retrieval is not clear. So the report is silent on ranking, whether paid depth products influence AI results, and whether agents can audit a listing that didn't appear. There's not one word about accuracy or liability. There's nothing about the vendor, the person actually paying for the campaign. And also worth the passing mention, the state commute figures don't sum up to 100. So they're within state rates answering a high number of questions. And the ACT 4% is incredible for a commuter city, but I think that has to do with the fact that they have that portal there. So I look at this report and I go, there's a real opportunity to actually guide real estate agents on where the search is happening at the moment. And it's not included in that report. There's nothing in that report that I'd be looking at going, hey, this is a really balanced way of guiding yourselves on how to move forward into the future. Like we've got all these agents, and you would have seen it. You've been to a conference this week. You would have seen these agents are concerned about how they appear in artificial intelligence. We have enough evidence filtering through to us anecdotally as agents that we are now saying that how I appear in AI now matters. We've got a bunch of former website producers saying it doesn't matter. We've got the REA Group is saying nothing to see here. But I feel as though there's a switch that has been flipped here, and I suspect that REA Group has a massive chink in the armor, is probably not in control of the consumer in the way they want to be right now in this space, and I think they're trying to scramble to get that to happen.
Yeah, I think, I think this report probably is just, I guess, more just like a data set, right? Like you've raised it, is there's nothing really specific. It's not, as a part of this, we're seeing these times of the day when this maybe is used opposed to other times of the day. We're seeing in these locations, like there's no deep diving into around how that has surfaced and where they've gotten these figures from. I think is what I'm hearing is definitely the message that you're putting out here is this probably was not AI. This is just them or the consumer going to their site and searching in the way they've always searched, because that's not how AI is doing the searches, right? Like we both know if we're then utilizing those external platforms, Gemini, Chat, Claude, whatever is your favorite, and then you're prompting them to what it is that you're looking for. That is not how you search on REA. the common consumer is not doing that. And they might be going to, yes, I want to filter. I want to see keywords, and I think that's the thing that they are very, they spruik about, certainly in how in which agents write their marketing ads. It's about what are the particular keywords to ensure that when searching is done, that those ads appear. But that's not AI.
Yeah. Yep. It's very interesting. I have a personal belief that not the majority, but just under the majority are currently starting with AI at the moment. And if that's the truth, then where you were spending your money as a real estate agent now starts to come into question. It probably is more exacerbated by the fact that the market's flat right now. So, we're hearing everywhere that it's dried up. Now could be a very, very, very good opportunity to go looking for other ways of trying to find that elusive buyer, because you might be surprised at where they come from, or you may not be, depending on who you are. Casey, we need to close out.
We do.
Yeah, I'm well aware that you've got to jump on a plane this morning, such is your busy life. Just before I do, another good news story. First National's rural and regional muster in Albury, Wodonga. Say that 5 times really fast. Raised $25,000 for the First National Foundation with $10,000 to Yes Unlimited, and that's a 40-year-old Albury not-for-profit lead agency for specialists and homelessness services in the southern Murrumbidgee. Delegates auctioned items representing their own region. So, look, one thing I'd like to highlight today is that this industry cops plenty of criticism. Right? We always we're on that. I think we take ownership of that when it's deserved, and we've handed out a fair bit today. So here's a room full of regional agents at their own conference auctioning off bits of their own towns and sending $10,000 to a homelessness service in the town that they were spending. So 2 threads, 2 halves of the show. The first half was what people choose not to say. An agent invented a theft and didn't tell you until the last slide. A media statement announced the court win and left out the part where the judge said the model probably isn't unlawful. A vendor signed a form saying she knew nothing about termites 6 months after asking Facebook group what to do about them. 41 agencies found time to lodge an overdue audit only once someone threatened their license. Portal told the entire industry how to optimize for a system that it doesn't describe or won't describe. And the second half was about the distance between an announcement and a key in a door. 700 homes approved in Sydney. Construction mid-2027, 14,000 homes unlocked. The gaps between the 2 threads, the housing supply and demand, are the same problem. Trust is what closes the gap between what gets said and what gets delivered. And this industry and the government's regulating are both spending it faster than they're earning it. So I think we've had a week full of counterexamples, but I want to leave you or talk last about a bloke who slept rough, who was trying to get 20 families housed by Christmas and told everyone exactly what was stopping him. I want the First National guys to be forward. I'd love the guy in Wynnum who put a joke on about himself on a billboard to let us know how his return on investment is. That's the part that I'd like to focus on in Friday, the 14th of August in this 2026 year. What about you?
Yeah, totally agree. I think we absolutely cop the criticism. We've been speaking about it for weeks about the real estate agent and agency getting the blame for these housing reforms and what's actually going on in the market. And we always hear out there the negative stories and the misconduct that we've done, but kudos and congratulations to those agents out there that have morals and ethics and are working, to support the community that they work in as well. And they're giving back to that community. They're humble. They love what they do and they're passionate about it. And they want to see this industry thrive in the right way and for us not to be known for all of this negativity that's out there. So well done to all of you. And the event, I'd just like to, make a final statement. There was 3 guys that presented at the event that I was at during the week, Pete, and it's called this changed agent. And, one, it's hard to even get up there, the same as Johnny Warren, right? You don't want this people to feel like you're playing the victim and that you're sharing your story to kind of get all of that praise. It's about what is it that they've done to mentally shift focus, to be a better human, to support their community, be a great real estate agent and do what is there. And out of all of those 3 stories, what I got was, they made changes. They had mistakes. They had to make changes, and for many different reasons. But all of them were so incredibly humble. They didn't want the pat on the back of, I'm so, you've gone from here to there and well done. It was more about the fact that we believe in the relationship that we're building. We believe in what product is that we're selling. And we just want to get the right outcomes for both our vendors and our buyers. And that is exactly why we've chosen this industry, because that's exactly what we can do. So it was just really nice to hear that there is positivity. There is great things that we do in this industry, and well done to everyone who continues to do that and operate in that way.
Yeah, I call them the practitioners. I call them the guys that have been in the industry for some time and have come to realize that it's not about greed and money and driving the fancy car or having the watch on your hand. It's more about the community that you're serving as a real estate agent, and the privilege it is to be in the position where you're trusted with someone's most valued possession to execute a sale or, a purchase if that's your thing, or the rent of that. So, the better we can focus on that, and the more stories that we have to draw attention to the practitioners, and maybe we should make that a segment, practitioner of the week or something like that, to highlight these silent heroes or the superheroes that are doing jobs, even when they're in an industry that or a climate that is sort of treating them very poorly at the moment. But wherever you are, whatever you're doing on Friday the 14th of August, we're delighted that you might have chosen to spend it listening to us bang on. It's always humbling when we hear somebody come up to us and go, I really like that episode, or thank you so much for doing this. I had someone describe it last week as water cooler conversation for real estate agents, so which is great. I've been involved in some terrible water cooler conversations in my time, so I wasn't really sure how to take that, but I think it was a compliment. Casey, safe travels today. If you're a real estate agent or a property manager or any professional and you're out there doing your job on the weekend, all the best. I hope it is a happy hunting and a successful weekend for you all. On behalf of Casey McDonald, myself, and the Before the Weekend crew, which is just us. It just sounds good if I put it in there. Just us. We're wishing you the best weekend and happy hunting. And you can find us on all the streaming services if you haven't already.
Yep. Happy weekend, everyone. And that's a wrap on Before the Weekend.
Before the weekend. Before the weekend. Before the weekend. Breathe it out. Be the calm, be the light. Tell the truth, do it right.